guys, welcome back to Home Built. You may have previously seen me put in the classic retrofit air conditioning system into this car, but there's one thing that's still been bugging me about the interior, and that is my dash. Alright guys, welcome back, and as I was saying, this week I want to do something about the dash on this car, and specifically I'm meaning this centre section here. I've never really been happy with the result. Back when I first built this car, my skill level was definitely a lot lower than it is now, and I just didn't have the ability to make it to what I really wanted. And it sort of looks okay-ish. But it's all a bit wonky. This center section, no matter what I do, I can't get it to go straight, this fan section. And also, like I mentioned last week, is I've been trying to upgrade the vents in this car. And I did do the center vent. So the center vent is good-ish now. Again, I'm not super happy with it, but that's something that I may address later. I may look at other vents for that, or retrimming this dash pad, because it is what it is. But the thing I want to address today is these tiny little side vents that are only about the size of my finger, or smaller than the size of my little finger, that originally came on this car. And that's why I went out and got myself a couple of these, which are the 964 vents for this car. And these don't just bolt in. They're going to take a little bit of modification, but also at the same time, as I said, I'm going to redo this entire section of the car and make it a little bit better quality and a little bit better finish. So first things first, I think, is I'm going to pull these seats out and pull the dash out, and then we can start trying to build everything back up to the level that I want again. Alright, so I've pulled my old dash pad out, the dash panel I should say, and you can sort of see here, I'll show you on the back how I'd actually made it. So I actually used thin MDF with layers of vinyl, and then there's a second layer, sort of insert layer here in with MDF and vinyl stuck to it, and then the tartan. It's not that great, yeah. These aluminium strips are just held in by these like paperclip things, whatever they are. You know, they've got a flat head on them and two prongs, and you bend them over and you can sort of see them there. That's how I did it at the time. Yeah, I think we can do better than this. It never sat that well. These bars are not held that firmly, so the whole thing was just a bit rough. What I'm thinking now is, because my skills, equipment, everything else has improved, what I'm planning on doing is I've got some more of these same aluminium strips, but I can actually now cut out some aluminium with the guillotine nice and square and straight, and I can weld the back frame together and then make another aluminium insert to go inside with the cutouts for the stereo and the HVAC controls, that sort of stuff. That's all easy enough to do to the aluminium strip and then trim it afterwards. So that's the way I think I'm going to tackle this moving forward. So to start with, I think I'm going to take my aluminium angle, cut out a center strip, and then try and brace it and weld it together into my framework that's nice and square all the way along, and then I can cut it into sections and then use those sections to sort of make up the bits as I go. All right, so you can see now I've gone through and I've laid out my first strip. So this is the strip for the passenger side going all the way through to the steering wheel. I want to make it in one piece and then cut it up. I've got some center sections that are right width, and what I did is I made up some of these spaces with the exact right space. It's just a strip of aluminium that I've bent in, they're exactly 70 mil wide, so that they can sit in between, and that gives me the perfect spacing to sit one of my vents in, so the vent will sit perfectly in between them. And I've gone through and made up sort of center section. So this long plate here is for the glove box, and then there's sort of a gap for the stereo, and then a gap for the HVAC controls, and so on. So I'm going to go through now and I'm going to tack these all together so that they're all in one piece. They're all nice and braced, and then I'll be able to go to the car later and fit them all up, and they should be good and nice and even. That's the key, even. All right, I am very happy with how that turned out. So we have a nice even frame that's all sitting quite nice. So this section at the end is for the end vent, the passenger side air vent. Then we've got the glove box section here, which this is obviously going to be cut. And then we've got stereo and HVAC controls, and then this is going to get trimmed off to sort of sit in behind the steering wheel. So that is one frame, nice and square and straight and even. I was actually quite happy with my welds as well. Actually, the more I practice, the better you get. That's how things work. But yeah, I actually ground down a lot of the welds just to keep it flat so that I can sit a panel inside this, and it's not going to be all over the place from the height of the weld. So that is looking really good. So it's time to I'll probably see if I can make the other piece, the driver's side piece now, and then we can start looking at cutting things up and trying to make it all fit into the spots it's designed for. All right, the more I look into this, the more difficult it is actually going to be, at least than I first thought. There is quite a few things to consider doing this whole thing, but I'll run you through what my thoughts are at this stage. Is now I have my framework set up, I need to move on to actually sorting out at least this side of the dash to start with. Now I have my 964 vent, which is going to go in here, but obviously it doesn't line up with this part of the dash. So I'm going to have to cut this out and make a channel at least for this to go into, and some sort of framework to hold this. I also am going to have to move over. This is the light switch. The lights are going to have to move over this way, and so is the hazard lights, which is what it is in the 964. They've actually just sort of tightened this all up. I'm also looking that I'm going to probably put my cruise control switch just here, just the on-off for the cruise control, which currently I had sort of tucked up underneath the dash, but I'm going to move it over here. Just I rarely use it. It's pretty much left on all the time just so that the cruise control stalk can do its job. So I'm going to mount that there, and the air conditioning is, switch on and off is going to be over on this side. First things first is I need to make a pad, like a plate that sits over here and bends up into this area, and that will be covered in black vinyl, so it looks similar to what the car originally was, because normally it has like a foam panel, vinyl covered foam panel that sits in there. So that's my first task, is to build those plates, and then I can start cutting this all out to sort of fit in this perfectly. You'll see as we go. All right, so I spent a bit of time then, and I've cut out my sort of backing plate for this side. So this sits in here just nicely. I've got a bit of a band up in this top corner, so it sort of covers up and follows up this area. You can sort of see here the area I'm going to have to cut out to actually get my vent to go in, but it's got the space for the lock, or for the ignition, I should say, the cruise control button, the hazard, and that's for the light switch. So I've got my basic layout here now. And I've also made the cutout big enough so that I can actually slot this all together. My other panel fits over beautifully. So we're on our way. We're on our way. Now it's time to cut out my extra holes into this panel here. Transferring from this one, I can just set it on, draw on the back, and cut the holes out. That is fantastic. I am really happy with how that's turned out. So there's space for everything now. As you can see, my vent is fitting in. Now I need to do something about the side here, but it tucks in and fits in the space. The center part sits nice and flat. There's enough room for the key, the hazard light, the light switch. They're all just sitting in here at the moment. And there's a space for the cruise control button that's going to be under there as well. Yeah, that is all fitting in nicely. So now I think it's time to start moving over this side and having a play over here. All right, so we now got the center section in. That's basically ready to go. I've just I've bolted it through. I'll show you how I'm going to fix it in permanently later. And here I've taken off the old covering that I'd sort of glued on there and scraped most of the glue off. So now we need to start working on the last sort of couple of pieces. We've got the glove box piece, and then I've still got to weld up this end to be able to take the vent. All right, so I've been busy. So I've made my little frame for the vent for the passenger side, which is by itself because it sits next to the glove box. And then I also made the sort of surround frame that sits up behind that will be in the black vinyl. That all goes together nice and neatly like so. So it all sits in there quite nicely. And I've also been flat out, I made another panel for the glove box, so another sort of cover for the front out of aluminium as well, and cut out my glove box piece, which will be attached to the front of it, something like that. So the last thing I need to do to finish this entire dash off is to cut this one in and get this vent mounted in on this side. So let's do that. Okay, I'm so happy with that. It's really coming together. There's still some adjustment and stuff like that to get everything perfect, but it's all there now. I've got my vents all the way along. The doors close, which is another big thing. I'd still have a fair bit of stuff to do as far as tidying up along the sides of the vents, and obviously also building a new dash pad underneath, because I've never actually had a dash pad under the bottom of this car. So there's a lot of bits and pieces to sort out. But I am really, really happy with it so far. I think it's come along really nicely. But that's all the time I've got this week. I've spent a lot of time on this. Obviously, we've still got to trim it and fit it. And as I said, there's more stuff to do. So I hope you join me on that. If you're enjoying the videos, do all the usual things, like and subscribe. Join us on Patron to watch the videos a day early before everybody else, ad-free. And if you need parts for any of your Porsches, even 964 vents, which is where I got these, compare prices at PorschePartsByJeff.com first. All right, guys, we'll see you next time.